Hi, everybody. It's Ron again. And today you'll see I've kind of retreated partially inside. I tried to do this outside yesterday, but it's way too bright. I couldn't even see the screen. And I had people saying, had you even opened an internet browser before? Because I was struggling out there in the sun. So today there are some really fascinating things, some things that really caught my attention. And first off, here we have Turkey. We have a statement by the leader of Turkey about possibly declaring war on Israel and sending military to Gaza. Now, this is sort of played up as a headline, but when you get down into the story, you find that this was just a speech to a rally. I think literally a rabble-rousing situation where he was talking to a very friendly crowd, and this footage, which was clipped and it was put up on Twitter and other sites. This is how the statement came forward. It wasn't as if he made an official government statement. So this doesn't sound like it's a new policy for the Turkish government. But you know, there's a lot to say about Turkey because about 15 years ago, when Turkey was re-emerging on the world stage, a lot of people were saying Turkey's not a world power. It's not a great power. What's going on here? You didn't hear much about them for a long time. They were just one of those old dependable allies in the Cold War. The one country in NATO that was also Muslim dominated. So what happened is, if during maybe the time all of us have lived in the world, Turkey has not been a major power. But if you take a step backwards a little further, go back to the First World War and before, Turkey has always been a very, very important and strategic country in the world because it has it's the entrance to the seaways to the whole Crimea area. And this is what Russia is fighting about in Ukraine right now. They're trying to preserve their access and control over their only warm water sea access through that region of the world, and all of that goes through a strategic Turkey. And of course, Turkey, as they've emerged again as a world power with a sort of populist leader now, they've kind of held up new countries entering NATO after the situation with Russia invading Ukraine. They've increasingly shown they are going to have a more independent role in the world. They've had lots of incursions and little invasions into Iraq and Syria to stamp out Kurdish forces, which sort of have bedeviled the Turkish state for a long time. That's a whole other big situation. So Turkey is a fascinating emerging power. And by power, I mean it's a country that is, first, it's strategically located geopolitically in a place that's strategic, that people care about, that's, if you have a war there, people are concerned about. And then that they have economic strength, which Turkey does. And thirdly, they have a willingness to do something on the world stage. There's a lot of little countries that have economic power, but they don't really want to step onto the world stage. Iran is an example of a power in its region. It's willing to fund terrorist organizations, or probably rebels or revolutionaries, as they would say it in other countries. They're a player. They're willing to be a player, and that's what Turkey is increasingly showing that they are. They have all the pieces in place to be a power now. Now, excuse me one moment. I want to make sure I'm still recording because it's awfully bright here still, and I want to make sure I'm recording all these words. So here we have, we're going into Gaza, or Israel's going into Gaza now, and we have going to have a lot of big, wild headlines about that. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I saw this earlier, and this is a Drudge type headline: Gaza blown back to the Stone Age. Final evacuation plea. Netanyahu's second war of independence. I think from some aspects you could say that if the goal in Gaza is to return the government to the Palestinian Authority, which is supposedly the rightful government of that area that is recognized by Israel and other countries and international agreements, from Hamas, which took over in a coup in, I believe, 2007. So if the goal is just to return the government to the Palestinian Authority, that's probably a good outcome. But as we'll see here in the world, this has caused so many people in the world to have a kind of a knee-jerk reaction against Israel. And it's sort of unprecedented situation that we haven't seen during all the previous wars, that it's hard to see where Israel will end up on the world stage. And I believe that's probably why they're being very careful in moving in slowly. I don't know if you'd say all the bombing is careful, but people thought they would have invaded before this, and they've sort of delayed and done it slower than expected. Isn't this something here? We have Friends star Matthew Perry dies at only 54 of drowning, apparently in his hot tub. How awful that a person can be that rich and not be able to fully enjoy it. He was an addict for many years. And what a shame. At their peak, all those Friends stars were making $1 million an episode. It's too bad. Just a thought of somebody making $1 million an episode. I got to take a drink of water to clear my head for a moment. So here we're back to the Gaza-Israel situation again. Surge in anti-Semitism marks frightening time for Jews in the USA. There are two sides to the story, but these sort of huge rallies, even New York, it certainly has to mark a certain kind of lack of intellectual vigor in looking at what's happening in the Middle East. Going after Jews the way a lot of Americans are. A lot of I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's unfortunate, and I wonder. I know the White House has made some statements, just supporting Israel, but I'm not sure that they've done very much to try to set the tone by explaining what's going on, trying to give some context, which is what I was trying to do with this site and this channel about the situation. I've got all kinds of people trying to contact me now. I'm going to set my phone on mute. Oh. Okay, now we're on mute. About neo-Nazis even in America, what an eventuality. Capitol rioters, more about Musk. Those get old, boring quickly. Everyone trying to tell me how terrible he is. Let's go back up here. This is a fascinating thing here. Pence is out of the race. This was Trump's vice president, a very sort of careful, conservative, low energy guy from the state of Indiana, and yeah, struggled to get any traction. I mean, for the people who are Trump supporters, he would be seen as a traitor or not loyal to Trump and what Trump was trying to do with halting the election certification. Weird, unprecedented thing, and certainly Trump was in the right in that. And I think for the rest of the Republicans or the moderates or people who might be interested in voting for him, he's so low energy and maybe a stereotype of the old white guy in the blue suit who points his finger like he's doing in this photo and tells you what to do. He just probably is not an attractive sort of candidate. Yeah. Allies fear USA, overextended as global conflicts spread. This has been mentioned in some of the previous headlines, shows that I've done. You know, we're in a situation where there's a lot of things that are erupting in the world. Some people talk about cycles of history. You might also just say people in the world or other countries, other powers see a certain sort of a weakness, and in the United States, maybe, you know, we've had Trump, we have Biden, both leaders that are both sort of crippled in their own way in dealing with things. And of course, during this last administration, there was a very haphazard and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan that you know, it sends a signal to the world that people don't have the stomach for that anymore in the United States. And like I say, you know, we were told for a long time how terrible it was for the U.S. to be involved in wars like Afghanistan, Iraq, because innocent people could be killed. So after hearing that for so long, you know, I think a lot of people believe in it. And as America has become more energy independent, perhaps the interest in the Middle East has certainly, it's not quite as important an area as it once was strategically. And yes, I know that the energy that's coming from that, what we're doing in all of those areas, protecting the sea lanes, we're protecting the oil that's going to our allies and our adversaries. China, who buys all America's debt and makes everything that Americans use. Japan, you know, lots of those countries. So all that has to work together for the world economy, as it has been in previous decades, to proceed. Something about Cher's son, she's allegedly kidnapped him, you know, like one of those intervention things. And now they can't find him. He's being held incommunicado. More about AI, learning superhuman persuasion. I guess we're going to start worshiping them and believing them. You know, I mean, if you have this idea of the dead internet where everything on the internet is generated by AI and created by AI, maybe it could start to persuade people in certain different directions in terms of elections and beliefs and things that people support. Some people would say it's already gotten that way. And a lot of these, you know, you read some of these stories sometimes, and it does feel like that certain sections are just cobbled together junk. You know, for a long time people thought, well, maybe they don't edit them as much. You know, there are spelling errors sometimes and punctuation errors, but it could be that we're already in an era where there's so much generated content. We're just reading stuff that is not generated by people anymore in any way. Something about serial killers, more people getting killed down in Mexico. Earthquake, can't do anything about that. You know, here we have what has happened very recently. We had the big stock market drop. I see how dark I am on the screen. I'm sorry about that. You just have to imagine there's an ugly white guy there. We had a big stock market withdrawal at the end of the week. Again, this is something that needs to have context too, because typically, I believe it's October is one of the worst months that the stock markets have, and then sometime around before the summer, May, it goes. It's a kind of a peak. So no matter what's happening with the economy, you always have jitters around this time of year. All the big crashes have been in October mostly, and then you have a little bit of elation, like things are going great going into the summer in May. So these are the cyclical up and downs. So I'm not giving you any advice, but people usually buy at this time because things are down, and they sell at the peak the other time of year. Market managers who have to show gains, quarter on quarter, year on year. That would be a difficult life to lead. A lot of pressure. Is America's spending spree unsustainable? Is it sustainable? What, 30, 31, 33 trillion national debt? Adding $1 trillion to that every year with the deficit. And remember, back in Clinton's time, love him or hate him, he balanced the budget. Now, I know you could fact check that, and there's some people that just say, oh, it's a technicality because there's something about Social Security he didn't do. But the fact check, the main ones, the ones that are nonpartisan, yeah, he balanced the budget. Like him or hate him, and he was an easy one to kind of dislike and say what dumb self errors he created for himself. But this is something I saw in a quite interesting, extraordinary museum of censored art. So here we have, I guess, Ronald McDonald, Dying for Your Sins, a very sacrilegious thing. I think most people say, well, it's mostly Christians and who do this sort of art, kind of prodding their own religion. And I know some people will say, well, do that to another religion and see what they'll do to you. I suppose it is a testament to the Western society that we live in that accepts this sort of thing and accepts all the viewpoints. Here's all kinds of stuff here. There's this, like they mentioned, that urine crucifix submerged in urine. On one hand, this is all fine. I think, like a lot of people, one might question using public money or government funds for this sort of art, and that certainly does leave open the idea that if governments are doing that and saying we're not going to give you public funds to create some sort of sacrilegious thing, that it is censorship in a way, which I guess it's true. But on the other hand, religious people do make up taxpayers, and in the same way, a taxpayer should support freedom of religion because they don't want their money's going to a certain religion. They want to have separation of church and state. They don't want they don't want the government to be protecting one thing or another. In the same way, they might feel that they don't want their money to be used on this kind of art that attacks or challenges their religion. And even in that, obviously, there's a contradiction, and it's a difficult one to reconcile. So there's a dog here scratching very loudly. I don't know if you can hear that, but if you hear a funny sound, that's what it is. There's more about abortion. I covered that a couple days ago. Yes, practice witches, goth stuff. I'm not interested in that at all. It's a sort of clickbaity thing that newspapers love. So This is the news for today. We got Turkey, we got Matthew Perry, I believe Richard Bowl, that's some guy on the Night Court show that's was very popular in the States. I never watched it, but he also died. We got Pence dropping out, and that's another day of news. So let me just, got to plug my book here if I can have my setup. Here we go. This is a book I've written. This is my novel, my latest work, and it's a story about young people, both foreigners that have come into Thailand to work and locals who are seeing their world change, and they're feeling the challenges of their life in a land both ancient and modern, in a land of concrete that's changing every day. It's in Amazon and Kindle, and I think if you like literature, deep stories about a place and a time and people, mainly characters, you'll like it. So before I completely lose my voice, I'll say goodbye. Until next time.